Hello everyone. Just waiting for Vijay to join in. Yes, and Hi Vijay.
Hi, Niranjan. Hi. So you're back.
Yes, I'm back.
Yeah. So I think there are a lot of people who have already joined in to
Yeah.
listen to you. So
Yes.
should we get started?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So thank you, Niranjan, for coming over to this Insta Live. So over the
Thank you.
last
Thanks for the
few
invite.
days, we have been having Insta Lives with multiple people. We had people from the Zumba fraternity coming over. We had Mayank Agarwal joining us. We had
Yeah.
a fantastic swimmer, Sri Hari, joining us. Then we
Right.
had Satyan, who is a table tennis player, who joined us. And in fact, this week, tomorrow, day after tomorrow, we have Dutch marathon runner joining us, followed by Anand Date, who again is a fellow colleague of yours at the NCA.
Yeah.
So
That's
we
nice.
have an
Good.
exciting list of people. So
Exciting
before
week.
I yeah. Before I jump into the discussion itself, I just wanted to give a brief discussion about you to the group. And
Sure.
so Niranjan has completed his graduation and post graduation from St. GS Medical College and KEM Hospital. And he also has a certificate in orthopedic manual therapy from Curtin University in Perth, Australia. Obviously, now he is associated with the National Cricket Academy in Bangalore as a physiotherapist. He has extensive experience uh, being with multiple teams, I would say, including Rajasthan Royals, the Mumbai Ranji team, and various teams of the BCCI at the zonal levels and otherwise. I think he's also been associated with fraternities like the Go Sports, where he has had an access to other sports, including track and field. So it's a great to have you here, Niranjan. Thank you
Thank
again
you.
from the Fast Enough community.
Thank you. Thank you, Vijay. Thanks for the
Yeah.
invite.
So straight away jumping into the discussion, well, the only time a person like me or a lot of others remembers about the physio is when I have an injury, right?
Yeah.
Uh, when the going is good, physios are nowhere in the picture. Even when we see it on TV, for example, the Indian context. And what is a sport that you feel that people are less injured from an Indian context?
I think even from an Indian context, again, I would come to the same point that the type of injuries are different. It's not that
Mm-hmm.
every injury would still have a certain, I mean, every sport would still have a certain number of injuries. Like, say, for example, if you take a contact sport
Mm-hmm.
like soccer versus a non-contact sport like, say, cricket or badminton. So the whole thing is that with contact sport, the type of injuries are different because they have collisions, they have a lot of acute trauma going on. Whereas with sports like cricket or badminton, where there's a lot of repetitive movement patterns happening. So they come up with what we call an overuse kind of injuries because of certain movements being repeated again and again and again. They kind of get
Mm-hmm.
injured because of those different kind of reasons. But ultimately, both sports will have quite a bit of injuries at the end of it. So it's not that one has less or one has more.
Fair enough. So the next point I would like to go into is, at least in the last few years, I would say the last 4 years, we have really had more understanding of physiotherapy, and a lot more people, even at the amateur level, is actually going to a physio today than what they
Absolutely.
would be going before. So
Right.
would you want to take some time and give us a structure of the physiotherapy as it exists in the Indian context in sports in India? Maybe break it down to elite, semi-pro, and at the grassroots level for people who would like to understand that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good question. Actually, if you really look at the physiotherapy structure at different levels, a lot of times you'll always find that at the elite level, it is a lot more organized. By that, what I mean is they always have everything under one roof. So you'll always have an academy at an elite level where you have coaches in-house, you have physios in-house, you have strength and conditioning coaches in-house. Even if you need another expert like a nutritionist or a psychologist, they are always at one call away and they'll come in for a consultation. So you get all the professionals under one roof. So it becomes a lot easier to coordinate amongst them as compared to if you look at an individual athlete who has still not made it to the professional level at the top, and there they will have their own experts helping them out with different aspects. Like they'll have their coaches, they'll have their strength and conditioning coaches, they'll have their physios or doctors, but they'll be all at different places.
Mm-hmm.
And if you come down to the grassroots level, I think that is the place where it needs a lot more awareness in terms of the players, the parents, the coaches of the academies need to be aware that there is importance of different professionals as as a holistic approach in delivering for your athlete. And if we get these people on board in some way, or if we have tie-ups, then that is the way going forward. That is where the grassroots level, we need to build a lot of awareness through these kind of educational seminars to encourage the athletes, the parents, and the coaches to come out and say, hey, we need these different professionals for our athletes to get better. And let's see how we can tie up, let's see how we can get funding and how we can form our own little support staff system for our athletes. That is what is required at the grassroots level.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So one quick question related to that is, we see a lot of youngsters now starting to train in different sports. Like you go to a football academy, you go to a tennis academy, to actually go and visit a physio. Because most of the academies are basically meant for,
Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you. So did you listen to my question?
This is the last bit I missed of your question.
Yeah, but I'm just trying to understand what is the right age for any youngster to go and visit a physio and seek guidance.
So yeah, I think that's a good question. But the whole point here is, when you have injuries, it is not just about the age. So I think at all ages, it makes sense because different age groups will have different kind of problems. If you look at these athletes who are, say, from the age of, say, up to 9, 10, up to 19, where most of the times you see they've been introduced into formal kind of sport. So I think they'll have a different type of problems, different issues where, they're growing, they have growth spurts, the bones are not as strong as other tissues like your ligaments in the body and the tendons. So they'll have different sort of issues as compared to somebody who's like a 22, 25 or matured athlete where, the growth spurt is over, their bones are fused and they will come up with different kind of problems. So I think for each different type of age group, there is still a role of physiotherapy and there is no particular age group which can or cannot access. I think everybody can access a physio.
So one clarification that I would require here is, it is not only when you have an injury that you go to a physio, right? I mean, you probably have to go to a physio even when you are completely normal.
Absolutely. So that is where if we really look at what are the different aspects that we have in physiotherapy, one aspect is always the prevention aspect of it. Now, one question we always need to ask ourselves: can we completely prevent injuries I think the answer would be no. Otherwise, you would never have found any injuries if you can completely prevent. Can we minimize injuries? Yes, that is a very realistic expectation that we can get the number of injuries down. And that is where the role of a physio comes in, where we have a process called screening, where what we do is take into account what your past injuries have been, what your past problems have been, and then accordingly design an assessment or a checkup where we test different aspects like your flexibility, your muscle strength, and try and correlate if you have any deficits as of now which correlates to your past injury, or any deficits which could probably predict that you might break down in certain areas if you continue playing at the same level. And that is how we make a preventive program, which is called a prehab. So that is different from a rehab. That a prehab is given when the injury has not yet happened. And the whole idea is to minimize happening of certain injuries. So there is the role of prevention. So definitely yes.
So we'll talk about it more in detail when we come to that subject.
Yep.
But staying on in injuries, so I'm just trying to understand what any athlete should know when it comes to injuries. I mean, there is one aspect where an athlete, when he's doing the same sport again and again, he somehow innately feels that he's prone to certain forms of injuries. So that would be one place where I would like to seek your inputs. Do athletes have an improved understanding of injuries over time, and what would be the role of physio there?
Correct. That's a very good question. I want to put this out to all the athletes or parents of young athletes who are watching this. Over a period of time, we've definitely had improved understanding of injuries. So now we can figure out in most of the scenarios that what is the problem with a particular issue, with it's a knee or say a lower back injury or an ankle injury. So we know what it is because of the improved diagnostic methods. The other aspect is also to understand why it is happening. So we are getting better and better understanding of why certain injuries happen. Because knowing what is wrong is one thing, which is good, the diagnosis, but why is it going wrong is also important to treat it well and also to make sure it doesn't happen again. So that understanding is definitely improving. The other thing I would also like athletes to know is, the trigger versus cause. A lot of times you will go saying, I did this particular movement and it's hurting, or I did this particular exercise and it started hurting. But that's not always the case. A lot of times, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. So a lot of times what is happening is it's a build-up of an issue. So it is not a one-time thing. It is built up to a point and you do some kind of movement, some kind of exercise at the same time. So it doesn't mean that this is the cause of your problem. You need to go back and, check as to what went wrong. And the other aspect of it for an athlete I would also like to elaborate on is that we want to work with athletes. So we need to understand what are their beliefs about an injury. What is their perspective about an injury? Sometimes athletes tell you that in the past this has worked for me, this has not worked for me. So it is very important to know that, because as a healthcare professional, I cannot just say that, okay, only I know everything about your injury and I don't need your input. No, I need your input, because if something has not worked in the past, there's very likely that it may not work even. I might need to a little bit modify my approach. And at the same time, if there is any beliefs which are irrational or non-scientific, we need to correct those at the same time. So those are the things we need to know about an athlete, and the athletes need to know that we are definitely on miles ahead in terms of the diagnosis and treatment of injuries.
Right. So is there any relationship between the nutrition that you use, the recovery pattern, the sports gear that an athlete uses, and injuries? Is there any connection between all these 3 or 4 aspects?
Absolutely. It is being proven now more and more that one of the most important aspects of your entire training and sporting spectrum is the part of recovery. It's not just important how you train, but it's also important how you recover in terms of your sleep, what is the type of food that you're eating, at what times you're eating what, before, during, and after your training sessions and competitions. So it is very important, and that is another aspect where a lot of focus needs to be given in terms of the recovery of an athlete. Because if you recover well, you are 100% for the next training sessions. If you're not recovering well between sessions, it's going to keep on building up to a point where you ultimately, start seeing the signs of breakdown. So yeah, nutrition and sleep
Right.
are very important aspects of it, and definitely need a lot of attention. Sporting gear
So,
again, absolutely.
yeah.
We have been seeing, say for example, in cricket, the helmets. If you see the helmets in cricket, say 1970s, 1980s versus the helmets now, there's a lot of difference in the helmets, the technology which is coming in just to make sure that the protective gear gets better and better, so we can minimize all those kind of injuries which happen because of not good quality protective gear, you can say. So that is very important. Shoes is another example. You will see that we are getting better and better shoes for runners, for any sport, to minimize those kind of injuries.
Perfect. The other thing that I'm seeing these days is also that unlike cricket, which is a very organized team sport, you have a support system in place where you have a fitness trainer, you have a physio, you have a coach, everyone is monitored. When you are playing a individual sport, and more often than not, you are at home practicing with different people. There are different people
Right.
who are influencing your lives. Like you have a separate fitness trainer, you have a different nutritionist. So how do you connect the dots? Because you might be giving information to the athlete, which may be in total variance with what
Right.
somebody else is prescribing.
Absolutely. So this is a very important point. As I said initially, when you have an academy where everybody is under one roof, it's very easy to go and communicate. But as you correctly pointed out, when you are an individual athlete, or when you are an athlete or a fitness enthusiast who doesn't have all those people under one roof and you're meeting them at different points of time, it is very important that they communicate with you. But apart from that, it is very important that they communicate amongst themselves as well. Say, for example, a coach has given you a certain kind of drill or a certain kind of new technique, which is possibly loading you in a different way, and you have started getting pain somewhere in your body. And if I tell you after an assessment that, okay, this could be one of the factors, I need to communicate to the coach saying that, okay, this could be one of the reasons. And how can we deal with it? Can we reduce the number of repetitions that you are doing with the new technique so that it kind of, reduces the load and then slowly build it up? Or do you want to still stick to this technique and look at some other option in place of this? So that is an important conversation. Conversation between a nutritionist if you're injured and you're not able to train at the same intensity. So me and probably the strength and conditioning coach also connect with the nutritionist, saying that he's not training at this particular intensity. So can you make a change in his nutritional plan, maybe cut down the calories or modify it in such a way that with the reduced intensity, it makes sure he's not putting on weight. So these are important conversations between different faculties which really need to happen. And it's quite interesting. Many players actually would call you saying that, I have an appointment with my orthopedic for my follow-up tomorrow at so and so time, and I'll give you a call from that place, and you can speak to them. So that's a very, very good way of communicating. I really like that when athletes and players come and say that, because you can directly speak to the orthopedician and make sure that everybody is on the same page. Because ultimately we are trying to benefit the athlete.
Yeah, it's very important that you kind of bridge the communication amongst the various people who are supporting you.
Yeah, very important.
Yeah. So there's one or two questions which has come up while we're doing the Insta. So there is one question which is on by Anjali Sarogi, who is asking there are a lot of mechanized equipments which are being used in physiotherapy these days, like laser, shock waves. How safe are these equipments? Like even I have seen massaging being done by machines these days. So how safe are they? Are they okay to be tried and tested by anyone? Can you quickly answer that question?
Yeah. So the thing with all these machines is they have been existing even before. I think they're getting more and more sophisticated with time. Now there's no harm or side effects of those. The only thing is one, whether it helps you just for pain relief or whether it's actually getting you back to function. So fixing pain is one thing, but that is not treating an injury. So your pain is gone doesn't mean you have treated an injury. So these machines may have some temporary relief in terms of pain, but when it really comes to fixing injuries, it is about getting back into those reasons why the injuries have happened. So if it's a reason is that certain muscles are strong, certain muscles are weak, and that is what we call muscle imbalance. So you need to work on the weak muscles and get them stronger. Or if your workload, that means the number of repetitions you are doing, the number of times you are doing those particular sessions in a week, the intensity of those sessions. So if that is the cause, we need to modify that workload and bring it down to a level where the body is not overstressed or overloaded. So till you don't address those causes, you're not going to fix the injury. So you might fix the pain with these machines on a temporary basis, but you will not fix the injury. So that is where these machines don't have any harm or side effects, but you need to understand that we're not just trying to treat pain in physiotherapy. We are trying to treat function and trying to restore function.
I think you have actually stepped into my next question, which I was supposed to be discussing with you. This entire concept of you getting injured, you getting a pain, and then quickly fixing it, vis-a-vis actually understanding what the pain is about and going through a process.
Right.
So my question there would be, what is a good approach? I mean, when does an athlete actually come to a physio, and what is the process going to be? When you have an injury, when you have a pain, you might put a tape and maybe you can play that game for a few times, but still that injury exists. So what is the process going to be when that happens?
So anyone who comes with a pain or an injury, it is first and the foremost thing for us is to establish the diagnosis as to what has happened in that case. Once you have got to that point where you know what has got wrong, and then you start identifying the factors which have resulted in that injury. Now, in certain cases, it might be possible for an athlete to continue playing with that pain in a certain way where we minimize the pain. So we need to figure out what is the risk versus benefit. If he continues to play with this pain, and if the chances are that it's going to worsen and get really bad, then definitely we are going to pull him out and not allow him to do so, and advise him that, we need to pull back at this point of time. If not, then as you said, sometimes with taping or with certain other kind of treatments, they can temporarily function, where at the same time we keep working on their rehab exercises, we keep working on their workloads to make sure that the injury doesn't go out of hand. At other times when he's injured and out of action, then the thing is we need to figure out what is the road to recovery. We need to figure out what are the time frames we are looking at, how much time will it take to heal, how much time do we need to further rehab and train it, and then how do we slowly get you back into your sport specific movements and your sport specific scenarios. So what we call is planning our milestones. At what point, how are we going to keep on building up so that we take them through the full spectrum of right from rehab, training, sport specific training, and actually putting them in sports and match scenarios. So it's a systematic process, might take time depending on the type of injury, but we need to stick to that process and follow it to get the optimal result.
So have you had instances when you had to step in and tell the athlete that you cannot continue, you have to be out? Because every athlete wants there to go and play. So have there been occasions where you have to really put a stern face, get him or her out of the game?
Yeah, I think most of the athletes, at least at the top level that I've seen, is they understand what is the time when this is a serious issue and they need to pull back. So many a times it's a very clear-cut demarcation. But when you have, as you said correctly, when you have those 50-50 issues, or sometimes it's a situation where you really need the athlete on field, and those are the tough calls to make, whether you want to pull them back at this point of time or whether you want to push them and continue playing further. So a lot of times the best approach is where we give our advice saying that this is a situation which can potentially get worse, but if the situation of the match is such that the athlete takes a call and the team also takes a call and everybody takes a call to back that decision that, okay, we need him at this point of time, and even if it gets a little worse, we are ready to take that risk and we'll work on it at a later point, but right now we need him, we go ahead at that point with that particular decision. But it's a combined decision with the athlete, with the entire supporting staff and the coaching staff. And at times you give your advice to the athlete in this 50-50 scenario, where in the other 50% where he might say, okay, I go with your decision and I understand that this might actually get worse. So I'm ready to go with your call. So it depends.
One question I had when it comes to, again, going back to the point of communicating with various professionals, is that I've seen a lot of times that you go to a physio, but you also have it you work with. So a lot of time has more information on what could break down, what are susceptible as an injury. Uh, uh, so do you actually actively communicate with the trainer to go through that rehappening? So
Yeah.
my
So
question
again,
is,
this is a fair question because a lot of times what we have is what we call training restrictions. So you don't put someone completely out of an action. Say a runner has a particular issue, say in the knee or the hip or any particular injury happening. So we could always go back and speak to the trainer or the strength and conditioning coach saying that this is the nature of the injury. These would be the training restrictions. But apart from this, these are the other activities which that person can actually continue. And certain things which would be absolutely restricted for now, again, for we give a time frame maybe for a week, for 10 days, and certain things which could be modified and done. So certain aspects of training could be modified in terms of the position that in place of, standing that same exercise for that different muscle groups could be done in lying down where you're not loading it, but at the same time continuing to strengthen the muscle. So these kind of little modifications can be done. And once that interaction happens with the trainer, then things become a lot easier so that he's also not completely tied up saying that, oh, I can't do anything with you at this point of time. So it's not fair on his part also because he can do a lot of things with you in a modified way. So we kind of interact and get those barriers out so they can also still continue doing their sessions, and the runner or the other or any other athlete who's going to them are also happy that we are still putting in hard work and effort and make sure that we are not, deconditioning.
Yeah, the last thing any athlete would want to hear is he or she cannot go to the field. Yeah,
absolutely. They just hate it.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about injuries, right? So we also touched upon the concept of something like pre-screening. And so there was a question which came up, which is connected to the last segment of our discussion, is a fairly fit athlete without any injuries comes to you. And how do you actually make the athlete injury free for the rest of his career, or at least minimize it? And what are the steps that you do for a pre-screening?
So for pre-screening, we would look at different aspects, things like the alignment, what you call posture. Are there any particular alignment issues in the body at different joints which might make you prone to certain injuries? So you address that. You look at flexibility at different joints, different muscle areas, and check if that there is a restriction somewhere which flexibility proven to certain muscles are too weak and underperforming. So you kind of establish what is the muscle imbalance and how we need to work on that. You could look at other aspects like what is the stability, what is the control, what is the balance. So there are a lot of different components in fitness. And then this assessment goes along with the assessment of a fitness trainer who would look at your power component, who would look at your strength component in general, who would look at your speed and agility. And we kind of combine the two assessments to really come to a concrete conclusion, saying that, hey, look, this is what I have found. And then most of the times he would come up with, okay, this is I have found, and say 70% of these things correlate because this particular thing is limited here. It is reflecting in my assessment as well. And that gives you a comprehensive program which you put forth in front of the athlete saying, look, you are deficient in these areas. Though you have not had injuries in the past, if this continues at the level which you are playing or performing, it could interfere at some point. So let us start a corrective program where we keep on working on those particular areas in certain days in a week and make sure that we correct those muscle imbalances or correct those flexibility issues and get you going.
Yeah, so I think there was a small lag. A lot of people missed you in between, but what you seem to say is that there is a list of normal
there is a series of tests.
Procedure.
Flexibility, alignment, muscle imbalance, and then other tests which are done by the trainers in terms of strength, power, agility, endurance, and
you
combine
have
it together.
Assessment Yeah, you have an assessment which happens, and then you tell the athlete these are the steps that you can take for preventing injuries as you go on.
You find what are the deficiencies through those testing, and then to target those specific deficits.
Right. Yeah, we will take more questions. A few more questions which are coming up. I can hear you now. I think there is sometimes I can hear you now. Hi, Niranjan. Are you back?
Yeah.
Sorry, so there are a few questions which are coming up. This is from one of the viewers who wants to take up, or rather, who probably is a physiotherapist who is a fresher and who wants to get into multiple sports. What should they do? What is the best course of action for them in India?
Yeah, I think one, definitely you could look at it from a different angles. One is the work experience angle of it. So you need to slowly get yourself associated with sports clubs or with different types. You could always have a preferred sport of your choice, which you could take up, because it then becomes easier to slowly start working on it and figure out from a work experience point of view how we can get associated with different athletes. Slowly approach clubs and start rendering them services where you could assess athletes, you could give treatment programs, and figure out how you can assess and treat them in better and better ways, which is the work experience part of it. Could always work with physios who are working in different sports, because that always gives you some kind of guidance in terms of how you should go about, what are the things you should look at. So that would be how you would develop your skill sets by yourself working, as well as somebody guiding and mentoring you. The other aspect is the educational part, where you need to keep working on your professional development in terms of doing courses which will help you getting better with your with your treatment methods. It could be what you call short courses, which are for CPD or continuing professional development, or it could be university level education like a master's program in sports. So that is the academic way of developing yourself and making sure that you are balancing out the education part and the practical experience part of it, and that always goes hand in hand, and that is how you would develop, because opportunities will come, but for that you need to make sure that you're good enough so that when a really good opportunity presents, you have already done your base work.
So one quick question, follow-up question that is there in any field which you take, is that you follow a sport. I mean, you as a physio, you get into soccer, for example, with soccer. If you follow badminton, probably you are stuck with badminton. Those in your field, and is it a valid point, or young physios should not be bothered about it?
Sorry, can you repeat the question again?
So typically in any field, you get into soccer as a physio, you're probably stuck as a physio in soccer. You follow cricket, you get into cricket. So there is a fear amongst some people that will you get stereotyped into one sport. Is that something of a worry for anyone?
See, again, this is something where a lot of times it depends. Some people, like I have met a lot of colleagues, certain people think that it's good to specialize in one sport, because you can never be a jack of all trades, as they say. So a lot of times people prefer specializing in one sport. If they like a sport, they keep on working on that sport to get better and better at it, because at a high level, if you're having two physios, one who knows about 2-3 different sports versus one who has just done that one particular sport, and if there's an opportunity in that particular sport, you will always prefer that guy, won't you? Because he's a specialized guy in that particular sport. Whereas
Mm.
I can understand the fear that certain people have that, I may not have a overall expertise. So a
Mm-hmm.
good way of doing it could also be if your nature of work permits, where you could balance it out, where you are working in a particular sport on field, but at the same
Mm-hmm.
time you are associated with a clinic where you are doing certain cases which are from a completely different sport, where you get to
Sure.
see, maybe not actually be with them on field, but you get an exposure of a lot of other sports from a clinical practice perspective, and you can still continue to
Mm-hmm.
work on them. Because that is how I have
Sure.
grown over the past 10 to 12 years, where I've always been working with particular predominant sport,
Mm-hmm.
which has been cricket, and then at the same time, wherever I've got opportunities, I've also worked with other athletes to make sure that it's a good mix, and it also keeps a variety, so it keeps you going.
Right. So there's one interesting question which I see on the screen is so many times when we as spectators see you guys going into the field, uh, a player has fallen down. You have
Yeah,
to make a decision at that point of time whether he
yeah,
continues to play or has to be pulled out. So how
correct.
difficult is that decision, and what goes on through your mind?
Yeah. So I think a lot of times that's an interesting question. People always come up saying that, what is that spray you put and he just starts playing again. So, so yeah, exactly. So it's not about the spray. It's sometimes about the nature of injury. Say, for
Uh-huh.
example, in a game of cricket, you got hit by a ball on the glove. So at that point of time, the key for us is to assess if it is a fracture or if it's not a fracture.
Uh-huh.
Because if it's a fracture, you need to pull them out at that point of time. A lot of times
Mm-hmm.
it could be tricky, but that is something which will come up with you dealing with those scenarios again and again. So as they say, practice makes man perfect. So when you
Sure.
have seen those scenarios again and again, you have handled those
Mm-hmm.
pressure situations. It's a lot about pressure as well. A lot of times, as you pointed out in the past, the athlete doesn't want to come out at that
Sure.
point of time. So how do you deal with that pressure? So this is something which will only come when you put yourself in those scenarios and you get those opportunities. But as you keep
Right.
putting yourself through those scenarios again and again, you get better at it. And then you can make those decisions pretty conclusively whether I need to pull him out or whether he can continue to play. Once that decision is made, then you
Mm-hmm.
definitely go accordingly. And many a times
Sure.
where it's not a serious issue, they can still continue,
Mm.
playing. So there's no magic spray.
Yeah. So let me see if I can have get some more questions. So the other question, one question is related to we should be in the Hi, Niranjan. Yeah.
Sorry, some
So
connection issues going on.
that's okay. I have one question here, which again, of actually uh, surgery. So going through a surgery for correcting an injury is always a difficult process. So,
hmm
what should an amateur do, and what should a professional do?
Okay. So again, when you have injuries where those kind of decisions have to be made, whether you need to get it operated, whether you can survive without a surgery. So what my experience has told me, again, it's always good to sit across as a group of people and discuss it. So fortunately,
Mm-hmm.
I've worked with a lot of orthopedicians who have always been of similar opinion. So we'll always have
Mm-hmm.
discussions saying that, okay, these are his options. These
Mm-hmm.
certain injuries would be a clear-cut decision whether it has to be operated or it doesn't need surgery. But when you have those 50-50 scenarios, a lot of surgeons will have those kind of discussions that if we don't operate it now, these are the
Mm-hmm.
options. This is the plan B. This is the plan C. We can go with it. Could be, giving him a cortisone injection to manage the pain at this point and continue with
Sure.
rehab. Or if we give them a
Mm-hmm.
trial of rehab for say 4 to 6 weeks, and if it still doesn't improve, then we don't have a choice but to go for a surgery. So it will also depend on what time of the season it is. Sometimes if it's a mild injury which can be managed with rehab, and you can play the season and then go for a surgery in the off season when there are no competitions. So such decisions can be made, but ultimately it will all depend on that interaction and conversation between the ortho, the physio, and the player, because ultimately it's a player's call. A lot of times where things can be managed without a surgery, the player would say, I don't want a surgery. Or sometimes the player would be insisting that, I'm okay to get it operated now rather than waiting for the next 3 months and then ultimately coming to the same conclusion that maybe it needs a surgery. So there are these factors which are involved in the decision making, but that clear communication between the three, the ortho, the physio, and the athlete is very important.
Teamwork.
Yeah, teamwork, absolutely.
So let me get on to my final couple of discussion points and questions.
Yeah.
One is a little tricky question. Any secrets from the National Cricket Academy which you want to reveal during this session? Any trivia? Anything that you can laugh around with?
So I think I wouldn't make any comment on that.
Fair enough. So to conclude, I think there are many more questions. I think it's always good to come back and have a session with you later.
Yeah, absolutely. We could do that. We could have one session purely question and answers if you want, where we could take questions, because people have a lot of doubts in their minds, definitely.
Yeah. So we can do that. So concluding thoughts, Niranjan, what message do you want to give to people? Also, if you can conclude also by letting people know how a physio can help when there is very little physical activity going on the training fields or on the ground. If you can highlight these 2 points and then conclude.
Absolutely. So there are a few take-home messages from this session, and it's always good to have a summary at the end and to, for people to kind of revise the whole thing. So one thing I would say is injuries do affect performance. So always get them sorted out on time. Don't wait for it to become like a bigger injury or a longer process and, waste those number of weeks off the field. So always get it sorted on time. One thing also is important, that overtraining is a cause of injuries, but at the same time, undertraining is also a cause of injuries. So as you correctly mentioned, that people need to have that correct balance of training to make sure that they are not overcooked or undercooked, as we say, and land up with a breakdown. The other part of it is also you need to find the right kind of experts who could guide you on that. So if you know someone who am I audible?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I was saying that you need to have the right kind of experts guiding you. So if you know someone, always approach them. If you don't know someone, make sure that you find out from your friends, from your coaches, from people who could be the right person to guide you with your injuries, and please do take their advice and take their treatment to make sure you get better. And the road to recovery and I hope that you all share this with other people as well who probably haven't been in the session, and enjoy your action-packed week with the Fasten Up speakers. Cheers.
Thank you. Thanks, Ranjan. Bye.
Thank you. See you. Cheers. Bye.